What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky back with you. Buck, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Can't complain. Another day in paradise. Getting ready for the holidays, getting ready for a big football weekend, getting ready for this draft stuff with all these guys opting out and guys preparing for the next level. It's just a lot on the plate.
You have packages like showing up at the house like we do all the time?
Oh, man, all the time. But you know what, DJ, I'm going to be honest. I can't tell holiday season from the regular season. It's always packages showing up. I just feel like packages do that. Like between packages showing up and Postmates and everything else, the COVID world has just changed exactly what goes on at the Brooks.
I have to give a shout out, by the way, to our associate, our coworker here, Jeff Birchfield, got me maybe the nicest Christmas present anybody's ever got anybody. He got me a Grubhub Chick-fil-A delivery.
Ooh.
So knock on the door. There's a guy out there with a bag of food, and it was Chick-fil-A. And I thought, it's a home run. I mean, diamonds might be a girl's best friend, but
Chick-fil-A.
Nah, Chick-fil-A sandwich is mine.
Chick-fil-A is. So DJ, like here's the thing, because that used to be part of our deal, the East West and at the Senior Bowl. Like,
I know we go there almost every day.
I know, like I don't even know what that looks like now. I don't even know what the East West is not going, but I don't even know what the Senior Bowl thing looks like.
I know, it's weird. By the way, I'll tease what's coming up here. We've got a discussion on whether or not the Jets not having the first pick is going to do their franchise in. We have done a little research on that. That's going to be a fun topic. Carolina Panthers are looking for a general manager. Good job, bad job. We'll talk about that as well. But as we go back to these All-Star game discussion, one of my favorite all-time All-Star memories. And however many years we've been doing this, Buck, I think so the 17th year for me, I think, in terms of all-star games. Go back to 03.
Okay, so I go back to 01. So this would be 20 years of it.
Yeah. I mean, geez, we've known this a long time. So one of my all-time favorites is when you took me to the Waffle House. Remember? I don't think I'd ever been to the Waffle House.
It's so unbelievable. Oh, man, I missed the Waffle House.
That was about 4 or 5 years ago, you think?
Yeah, the Waffle House. That was at the East West because it was right down the block.
I did a radio interview in there. Like, we were the only two people in the restaurant. Not a great sign, but we're the only two people in there. And I forgot I had a radio interview to do. So I sat there and did the radio interview, and they asked, like, oh, by the way, where are you? I'm like, I'm in a Waffle House. You want to say hi to our waitress? And I handed the phone to her. She said hello. Remember that?
We got all about the Waffle House. Yeah, because that's my own personal thing. The way that you feel about Chick-fil-A is the way that I feel about the Waffle House. Like, I could be in the South, and I could have just eaten. And if I happen to pass by one, I have to veer the car off, and I have to sit down and get the deal. And I can admit, I'm a double pecan waffle guy with scrambled eggs. I'm gonna get grits.
Yep.
Maybe with cheese. Sometimes the country comes out, but like that's how I'm going. Gosh.
Yeah, it's good. You know what? The waffle's good enough for you. If you just wanted to just say, hey, just throw a waffle in a bag and get it to go.
Let's go.
You're good.
Let's get it. And for me, for a guy who likes to eat breakfast for dinner.
Oh, me too. That's what we did. That was at nighttime. It was like 5 o'clock East Coast. We were out there. Anyways, Bucky introduced me to the Waffle House, and I'm forever grateful.
How about that?
All right, let's get into this topic here. First one here. We know the Jets won, right? So they fall to the number 2 pick as of right now. Jacksonville, that's looking like a plum job there, potentially with Trevor Lawrence just staring them right in the face. But it got me thinking, because I was thinking, okay, you get a chance to get the first quarterback in the draft. Does that mean you get the best quarterback in the draft? So I went back to look this up. So I'm going to go through these and you tell me where I'm wrong here. But I went back to 2010. I'm going to give you the first quarterback that was selected. Then I'm going to tell you who I believe has been the best quarterback from that draft class. Okay, you ready?
All right.
2010 was an easy one. Sam Bradford was the first pick, and that draft didn't have anybody else. It was a Tebow draft and all that. So Sam Bradford, that's a check. He ended up being the best quarterback in that draft class. 2011, same thing. Cam Newton was the first pick. Remember, that was I think that was Locker, Gabbert, all those guys. So Cam, clearly the best of that class. So you're 2 for 2 there. The first quarterback pick ended up being the best of the group. Now it starts to change. 2012, Andrew Luck, who we pointed to forever, highest grade I've ever given a quarterback. I think you might be in the same boat. Andrew Luck was the first pick, and I know he retired early, but even if he was still going, I think we'd say Russell Wilson has been the best quarterback in that class. Not Andrew Luck with all that hype. Russell Wilson's been better. 2013 is almost a throwaway year. E.J. Manuel was the first quarterback pick that year. Mike Glennon has had a better career. Man, it's not like you're talking about backup.
Yeah, like
he's had a better. Mike Glennon got a contract. I mean, he got a second contract somewhere.
I know.
So he's had a better career. He's still playing. E.J. Manuel's been out for a minute. 2014, Blake Bortles was the first quarterback pick. Derek Carr's clearly been the best of that group. This one's a debate. 2015 was Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota year. So Winston was the first pick. I think you could argue it either way. I'm going to give Mariota the tiebreaker here because he won a playoff game. I mean, he got in the playoffs, won a playoff game. But that's a debate. Obviously you would say it's not a clear-cut win for the first quarterback picked. 2016 is another bit of a debate. That was the Goff Wentz year, right? But if you look at just the numbers, I know Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl, so I'm kind of contradicting myself here on the playoff success. But Dak Prescott, if you look at the numbers, Dak has he's got better numbers than Jared Goff.
Yeah, I think you can say that. Yes.
So I put down Dak. I think that's a debate again. But what I'm getting at is not a clear cut, not clear cut.
I think you're hitting on the right thing. Like it's not a guarantee. Yeah.
All right, let's keep going through the list. 2017 Trubisky, that was Trubisky, Mahomes, Watson. Obviously, Mahomes has been the best of that bunch. 2018, Baker was the first pick. Now Baker's playing really well this year, but I think if you were to go around to the league right now, I think Josh Allen, even over Lamar. I know Lamar's got an MVP, but I think everybody would take Josh Allen just because of of what he can do and as a thrower. But either way, it's you would look at.
But either way, you say those two guys have had a better career than Baker Mayfield based on let's look at the team success, let's look at how they've grown, and let's look at their individual play. So either way, you're not wrong.
So 2019, Kyler would be the one. So that he was first pick. He's been the best. And then 2020, I know it's a small sample size. Joe Burrow played really well, but I think I would think that if you polled all 32, Justin Herbert would probably get more votes right now based off what we've seen than Joe. But it's both good. But I'm just saying.
So the only years that we can say are 2010, 2011.
Yep. 2019 would be kind of the for sure's. 3 of them where it's not really a debate, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's good. So now the bigger point is, so it ends up being a thing, an overreaction to the what might have been lost if you're the New York Jets, and that's part of what we do on this side is like we build these guys up and we talk about them being superheroes and how they're going to transform the franchise and all those other things, because as scouts, like that's what we do. We get excited about what they could be at the next level. I do think it's interesting because I do believe like this class of quarterbacks is pretty solid. I think there's some intriguing places, and I'll be honest with you, after looking at the Josh Allen thing and the Lamar Jackson thing and all this other stuff, I don't think you really know until you see where they go, because it is all about the creativity. It's all about the fit and scheme and how much you're willing to fit your scheme around the player. And we've seen players improve. And so it will be interesting to see this class with presumably Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and Trey Lance, how this shakes out. I mean, because there are no guarantees. It just depends.
So you talked about guys getting better. Think about Josh Allen. His last 2 years at Wyoming, 56% completion percentage, 56.3% completion percentage. This year in Buffalo, 68.7. 68.7 was 69% from 56 to 69. Made a 13% improvement from college to the NFL. I've never seen anything like it, Buck, but I think it speaks to the fact of it's a conversation we're going to have on tomorrow's episode. We're going to have Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina is going to join us, our head coach there. And we talked to him, and you'll enjoy that conversation about building your offense and your scheme around who you have and what they do well. Don't ask them the things they don't do well. And Josh Allen's a great example. When you have the talent, you can morph everything around him to be able to cover up some weaknesses, and guys get better as well. So, I mean, I just don't think you can look at it and say it's this quarterback or bust And if I'm not mistaken, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Mort might have said this the other day. In like the last 25 years, I think there's only been 2 quarterbacks picked number 1 overall who've won a Super Bowl, and that's both Mannings. It's Peyton and Eli. That's it.
Really?
Think about it. That's it.
Wow. I have to go back and check, but just 2 number 1s, the Mannings. Here's what I say about the Josh Allen thing or whatever. And I think it is important that as we're doing the evaluations, and there's going to be a lot of conversation, and part of that is what we do for TV and for debate is to create the debates and try and pit guys against one another. But I think it's really interesting just because you may like someone or rank someone higher than the other, it doesn't mean that you hate the person that is ranked below them.
Yes.
I think it's really important that we kind of distinguish that fact and also try to tap into your imagination on what this player could become. And I think now more than ever in the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen that it is about what can this guy become if all of the things are right around him and not, oh, he can't do this, he can't do that, or whatever, because we're seeing these offensive coordinators who are taking guys at their place where they are at their skill level and saying, okay, that's fine. This is what you can do. My job is to find as many ways as we can do that to allow you to be great. Mm-hmm. And I need you to work on these other things. But my job early in your career is to figure out exactly what you can do and to figure out different ways to give you opportunities to do those things. And so we'll see guys have these spurts or whatever. I think the big thing going forward for Josh Allen, because this jump has been so big, is it sustainable? Will he kind of come back to the pack a little bit next year? If Ryan Daboll happens to leave and get a head job, does that change or alter the way that Josh Allen plays? And also, we can look at the numbers, but looking at the tape, do some of the issues that popped up still occur? And he's found a way to kind of work around those things, or they haven't put him in those situations or whatever. I think the playoffs would be really big. And I'm saying that Josh Allen has become a guy who deserves to be in consideration for MVP and all that other stuff. But the playoffs will be big because the playoffs, the game speeds up. Last year in the playoffs, like Lamar, he melted down. Is he ready to handle that challenge when he gets to the postseason this year?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's something that you can make the other side of it, which is did the key, you finally just unlock the door with Josh Allen. And now once you've unlocked the door, now he's good. You know what I mean? Like you kind of solved it. He's figured it out. And there we go.
Yeah, and I will say this. He is a hard worker. Yeah. Like there's one thing in talking to people in that building and talking to people around, people that train him, he is a hard worker. And there's not a substitute for hard work. And I think from us, if we have the opportunity to get around these quarterbacks, I think it's important to get around them during the evaluation process so you can feel better about what it is that you're pushing or promoting when it comes to them and why they will be or won't be successful, because you have to know. And I think the work ethic, the football character is really critical, especially when we hear some of the stories about some of these other quarterbacks who may not be as diligent when it comes to paying attention to the task at hand.
Yeah, interesting thing is when you go back and look, and Mark put up some of the other quarterbacks who were picked number 1 overall that won Super Bowls, you got to go back, right? So you go back to Aikman, Elway, you can go back to like Jim Plunkett, Terry Bradshaw. The interesting thing is and those guys are Hall of Famers, especially when you look at Elway, Bradshaw, Aikman. I don't know, Plunkett's not a Hall of Famer, is he?
No,
yeah, he's not a Hall of Famer. But when you look at it, okay, those were phenomenal talents, number 1 overall picks. Look at the number of Hall of Famers that Troy Aikman played with. That's a complete team. Complete team. Yeah. John Elway would be maybe the one. I mean, he had some great players around him. That John Elway's kind of the unicorn. Terry Bradshaw played with a million Hall of Famers. I mean, Hall of Famers that you throw a rock, you get 10 of them on that team. Elway to me is kind of like the one unicorn. And then he ultimately, though, didn't end up winning the Super Bowl till they got the offensive line, TD, and the run game, to go along with what he could do. But he would be. You're talking about transcendent talents, number 1 overall pick. I would say, because Peyton and Eli, I mean, Peyton drove that team. Eli, I wouldn't necessarily say drove the team. That was more of a complete team.
Yeah, I would say of the two, I would say Peyton was more the transcendent talent. I don't think Eli was a transcendent talent.
I mean, without Peyton, the team won one game. I mean, so I mean, I would say of those two, like if Trevor Lawrence ends up being John Elway or Peyton Manning, then well, crap. I feel bad for the Jets. You missed out. But I mean, we're talking about two guys. That's it.
I mean, yeah, and I believe in it, but right now, because like we heard all the stuff about Andrew Luck, and we do it all the time. Like that's part of the run up to the draft to talk about the number one pick and how he's such a transcendent talent. And then it's always a debate on our side. Am I grading him for how I feel like he's going to play, or am I grading him for where I know he's going to get picked? And that's a difference. It's difference in playing the, hey, I want to be right on the mock draft part of it, as opposed to, no, I want to be right in terms of how he plays in 2 or 3 years. And that is more of the scouting nature part of it. And so I think it's important to keep that in context. And with Trevor Lawrence is a fantastic player. And I will say, I believe he's gotten better this year. I believe this year actually helped him. He has gotten better. He has separated himself from the others because his game is on the ascent where some other guys have kind of stayed and plateaued. I feel like he is a much better player now. Once again, I will say, I want to see him in the playoffs because last year in the playoffs, he had some difficulties. Let's see him play when the game speeds up and he has to kind of deliver against the Ohio States and potentially the Alabamas or maybe even Notre Dame again in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, given my choice, you'd rather have the number one pick. I'm not saying that. I love Trevor Lawrence. I'm just saying that the sky is not falling. It's not the end of the world.
It's not falling. And then DJ, here's the thing: if you're the general manager, how can you, in good conscience, stand in front of the team and always talk about we want to put ourselves in the best position to win, and every decision that we make is about winning, but then secretly and privately hope that your team loses for a draft pick like that? That runs counter to everything that we believe in. And typically, when you do those things, like the football gods don't shine on you properly, and so that's what happens. Everything in the building is about winning. We want to win. We want to win at everything. We want to be the best at all things that we're involved in. And that isn't about going out and putting dud performances up, because also that's on your ledger. Like
you want 0-16 on your resume? No, thanks.
You don't want 0-16 on your resume as a general manager. You want to win games. You want to be competitive and those things. And you would like to think that you have enough confidence that even if you don't have the number one, cool, I have the number 2 pick. Well, let's see what we can do with the number 2 overall pick to make it where they talk about, wow, look at what these guys did, because there have been other teams that have been able to do it. So let's find a way to get it done. And I think you have to challenge your scouts and everybody. Let's make it right. We still want to have an A+ draft regardless of where we start.
You want to know what the irony is in the AFC East? We went like 20 years with New England having the quarterback, the other 3 teams trying to find the quarterback and rolling through guys unable to find a quarterback. And now if the Jets can hit on the quarterback, whether they're picking 1 or 2, you have all the other 3 teams in the division with young, hopefully stud quarterbacks. And New England's the team that doesn't have a quarterback trying to find the quarterback. It flipped it.
It did flip it. And I think what also has been exposed, like when we talk about New England, because now that they're out the playoffs and the dynasty is all done, we can really talk about, hey, man, we used to always say this. We used to always give them the ultimate hall pass on draft day because we would squints and squirm and, man, I don't know.
It's
I don't
a little
like
rich.
This, yeah, but then they would end up in the Super Bowl because the coaching and maybe TB12 would make them right. Well, now you don't have the ultimate eraser to make it right. You have to begin to evaluate the process by which New England evaluates and stacks their board and does this. And so Bill Belichick and his staff, they have a lot of pressure on them to draft and get this right, because I think we could go back and look at their last 4 or 5 drafts and say they haven't drafted Pro Bowlers. I think they haven't drafted a Pro Bowler since
they've always been able to say always been able to explain it to the end justified the means. Like it was almost like, hey, we're trying to get to this destination. I can take this direct route here, this road, and that's the right way to go. But then they might get off and do all these back roads, and they go, no, we ended up where we wanted up. We went the right way. And I'm like, you could have gone a lot easier way than that.
A lot easier. And so, DJ, we go back and we look at the files, are we confident that they can draft their way out of this bag, out of this hole that they're in, because the numbers and the data would suggest no, because they haven't been able to really hit on players. I mean, they haven't hit on players in the last 5 years, really.
Yeah.
A handful of guys, but not consistently. And so to think that they're going to wave the magic wand and get it all right in this year's class, I think that's a little unrealistic based on their history.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Let's switch divisions here, switch topics. Want to ask you, because you spent time in that organization, I know there's a new owner there, David Tepper, but when you look at the Carolina Panthers, Marty Hurney, who you worked for, was let go. Kind of curious on that, just right before the end of the season, as opposed to just letting the season finish up. But A, what do you think of their roster? And B, is it a good job, bad job?
Well, I think it's a really good job. I think it's a really good job because I think Mr. Tepper is doing everything in his power to really elevate the franchise. New facility down in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I've seen the pictures, man. It's going to be outstanding. You have an owner who is a forward-thinking, cutting-edge owner. He comes from being able to hedge fund manager, so he understands analytics and all that other stuff and finding values in depressed industries and companies and all that other stuff. And so what he wants to do is he wants to modernize their personnel approach. Having worked there, it was an old school approach. I mean, it was scouting reports and all that other stuff. Data played a little bit, but not really. And they want to modernize it. And I believe, here's what the bottom line is. I think we're seeing a trend where you want to have the coach and the GM in lockstep. And whatever that means, they see the game the same way. They kind of have the identical philosophies for how you build a team. And I'm not saying that the head coach is the one that's driving everything, but I certainly think that they're in the boat together. And so I think the days of, hey, I'm the general manager, the head coach is below, I don't know if that is the model anymore. If you go back, and I think it's interesting, if you look at the Seattle Seahawks have been to the playoffs, 8 out of 9 years, 9 out of 10 years, John Snyder and Pete Carroll. And they have been together. Pete Carroll was hired first. John Snyder comes on board. They find a way to make it work. And they've been very, very successful. And I think more owners are kind of looking for that thing. And I think with Tepper, he wants that same kind of synergy and connection while also utilizing all of the data and the stuff that is available to him. And so it's a unique deal.
All right. So if we use the 3 to 7 scale, was the one we use in Baltimore. So 5 is average, 4 below average, 3 poor, 6 above average, 7 superior. And if we're looking at healthy organizations, you just described one in Seattle: owner, head coach, GM, quarterback. Seattle, you would probably go 7, 7, 7, 7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just all superior all the way down. I think when you look at Carolina, from what we've learned thus far about the owner, 7. Mm-hmm. The head coach, I know they haven't, it's his first year there, but everything we know about Matt Rule,
a surprise. Yeah, 7.
I think he's a 7. So you've got the owner and the head coach. Next on your agenda, got to get the GM and the quarterback.
GM and the quarterback, yes.
That's this offseason. They're holding the 5th pick right now. So they're going to have a chance. They have a chance to get both those. They can check both those boxes. And this is a huge offseason for the Carolina Panthers. They got 2 huge decisions to make.
Huge offseason for the Panthers. And without speculating, man, I just think, like DJ, when I look at the situation without even knowing who the decision maker or the picker is going to be, can you imagine if this team is able to get, let's just say they get Trey Lance, right? Yeah. And the thing about the Trey Lance deal that will give some people pause as we do the run up to the draft is, hey, he's only a 1-year starter, didn't play this season, really not due to his own fault. But now you have a situation where you already have Teddy Bridgewater with 2 years left on the deal. That's what it will be next year. Man, you talk about having a situation where you can bring a quarterback in and really develop him and get him ready to play. And I think Matt Rule has already shown an affinity for the athletic quarterback because the backup, P.J. Walker, is athletic, can do some things. I think he had him at Temple too, right? That was his quarterback at Temple, maybe.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when you look at the room, I don't think that is out of the realm of possibility. I think it's about the connections. Now, I didn't know this. Maybe you know it better, but I didn't know that Matt Rule was a GA or a coach at UCLA when Adam Peters was the DN.
Yeah.
I mean,
be a heck of a hire. AP's really, really smart.
Been
He's
in the
really,
game,
really smart.
Been in the game for a long time. So I certainly know he has seen it. He's been an integral part of the way that the 49ers were constructed. I'm just saying.
Go back to the Broncos, go back to the Patriots. Like, he's been around a lot. He lost a lot of football games, man.
Yeah,
He's got a full trophy case.
Yeah, so he's seen it. He's seen a lot of it. Good dude. So I think you look and you just kind of see how this thing is trending. I think it's interesting. But DJ, there's so many jobs out there. There's so many jobs, like and you know, like in the personnel, and you just don't see. You don't see a number of GM jobs open like this.
No.
Maybe one or two. You don't see 5 or 6 jobs that are available.
Yeah.
Because when they're available, then not only are you talking about GM jobs, but you're talking about everything down. The trickle down effect from directors and national scouts. Man, it's going to be the Wild Wild West in May when those contracts come up. It's going to be bananas.
Yeah, no, and all in the middle of the backdrop of a pandemic where, you know, guys haven't been out, guys haven't seen each other. I mean, it's all Zoom interviews, right? It's gonna be just Zoom interviewing all these scouts. You're gonna try and build your staff around. Crazy.
And just so the listener understands, a lot of what you glean in terms of when you start thinking about guys that you would bring on board, a lot of those relationships are cultivated on the road.
Yes.
You and I are together at UCLA, or we go on
let's get dinner. Let's get dinner tonight. Yeah.
We're on a West Coast tour, and we go to about 5 or 6 schools together. I get a chance to see how you work, and we begin to talk, and we talk ball and how you see things and this and that. And I begin to learn more about you personally and your family and all those things. And so you to build a trust and a connectivity. Well, this year you haven't been able to do that. And so much of what we do as scouts is about the relationships and communication. It is a challenge to really get to know and connect with somebody over Zoom because it's not your normal way of interacting with people.
No, it's going to be an interesting offseason, but I think we can sum up. We're on the same page. Good job, right?
Oh, absolutely. Really good job.
It's a good job there in Carolina. So we got an opportunity to get the, as an organization, get the GM, get the quarterback, and man, you are off and running.
Now, let me say this about Marty Hurney, having worked for him, because I think there are a lot of people that always ask us about how to get in or whatever. And I think it's important for me to share his story. Marty Hurney was a beat writer. He was a beat reporter covering the Washington football team. And someone in that organization, I want to say Bobby Beathard, took a liking to him, brought him in, showed him the ropes, taught him everything about the business. He eventually ascends, goes to Carolina, moves up the ranks, and becomes the general manager. Here's what I would say that I learned about Marty Hurney. The most important skill that I took from him, he was an A+ listener. When you talked about DJ, we talked about general manager and discernment and being able to listen. I would say Marty's best traits were being able to listen to everyone in the room, kind of sift out what was important, and make solid decisions based on that. And when I was there, it was John Fox, it was Marty, Tony Softly, and a bunch of other guys, Joe Shane, Ryan Cowden, all those guys working up under. We're working together, and everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a say. He would be able to listen to that and the coach's opinion and be able to, Brandon Beane was also there, be able to make good decisions by taking all that in. And I think because he was a journalist and because he was a writer, he had skills in doing that. And I think it's an uncommon thing, but I think he did a really good job of doing that. And now people will talk about the ups and downs that the Panthers organization experienced in terms of their records and stuff. But I would say from a personnel standpoint, I think he did a really good job of acquiring talent. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn up again with the Washington football team based on the fact that they still have a general manager opening and a strong relationship with Ron Rivera. Because some would say he fell on the sword for Ron Rivera when Mr. Richardson wanted to fire him, and he absolutely wouldn't let it. And he fell on the sword the first time he was let go from Carolina. I think that loyalty might be repaid down the line. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see him pop up in some capacity with the Washington football team.
Good call. And man, we've talked a lot in the past about the Ravens personnel tree and all the guys I worked with that have gone on and done big things. And man, you start looking at the job that Beane's doing in Buffalo. Joe Shane's there with them. You look at RC; he's down in Tennessee. All right, Ryan Cowden's done a great job, man. You can set a darn good staff there in Carolina.
So here's the thing. I got there on the late end, and so part of that is these guys would tell you. Part of that is the Bill Polian when he was there as the general manager. He was there right before he left to go to Indianapolis, and then up under him, Jack Bashowski and some of those guys were there. And so all of that is kind of the same. So those guys learn under a few different guys, but I think they certainly understand what it should look like, how to build it out. And I think that's important. And I'm excited to see the success that all those guys have had, because we were all in the room. And I remember, I mean, I was a little older than those guys, but those guys were young. They've grown up and they've killed it. And they're super successful. And I think they have a clear understanding of how to build successful franchises. And the job that Bean and that crew has done up in Buffalo, I think that certainly is going to catch the eye of owners looking to rebuild programs, because I think those guys have a recipe that can be followed. And I think it's one that can be duplicated in other spots.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, again, I think it'd be interesting to see what happens with Marty Hurney. Maybe he ends up in Washington, and that Carolina Panthers job is a good gig. So we'll see how it all shakes out. Anything you want to add before we get out of here, Buck?
No, man. I just want to implore everybody to spend a little time with the families for the holidays. I know it's different with the pandemic and everyone trying to maintain social distance, but hopefully you have a great holiday weekend. We can kind of get to it. And I know we have another podcast before we get there, but I'm excited about the holidays, man. It's only a couple of days away.
I know, man. It's finally here. We do want to encourage everybody to check out the podcast tomorrow. We'll have another pod that'll drop tomorrow with that interview with Jamie Chadwell, the head coach at Coastal Carolina. I think you guys will dig that one. That's going to do it for us. I want to thank Nabil for the great job he does producing. Appreciate all his hard work throughout the entire year. He's outstanding. So we're very fortunate to have him with us. Thanks to Mark Brady for being the captain of the ship. And everybody else out there for listening to us. We appreciate you joining us on a weird year here in 2020. But we're going to finish up strong. And thank you so much for being with us. We'll catch you next time right here on Move the Sticks.